Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're in here with Aquarius, and if you hear panting, it's because tequila's over my shoulder. But we're here with Aquarius, my blue-eyed white Holland Lop today, because I wanted to start talking about showing your rabbits. So taking your rabbit to a sanctioned show and having them evaluated and maybe placing or maybe not placing, or at least finding out how your rabbit stacks up against other rabbits. So, going into shows and showing your rabbits is a really fun way to meet other rabbit enthusiasts because the people there are obviously really into rabbits. Otherwise, they wouldn't be at a rabbit show. So, it's a really fun way to meet people who share your interests. But navigating the entry and show process can be a little bit confusing for some people. And I don't blame anyone for being confused. It is confusing. So you're going to hear a lot about pedigrees and registration, and half the time that's not going to make any sense. You're going to hear about breed standards. You're going to read breed standards, and you're not going to quite know what they're getting at. And that's all really normal for someone first getting started in the show rabbit world. So let's just slowly, one video at a time, start talking about different aspects of showing. So today I'm just going to talk about picking your show rabbits and things to look for and basically how to make sure you have a rabbit that can at least get entered into the show and isn't immediately disqualified. So, in order to show your rabbit at a sanctioned show, you have to have a rabbit that is registered with the sponsoring association. In our case, it's ARBA, so the American Rabbit Breeders Association. But that will change depending on where you live, obviously. If you don't live where ARBA operates, you're going to be operating under a different registry. So the actual registration process, I'm only going to talk about with ARBA. The pedigrees, I'm only going to talk about in regards to ARBA. But a lot of this will apply to a lot of different associations. So ideally, your rabbit would be pedigreed. That's not necessarily a firm requirement. You can show unpedigreed rabbits, and there's a fly that tequila's snapping at. So if you hear, it's because there's a fly flying around and tequila's trying to bite it, which is really amusing. So if you hear, it's her. Because, yeah, you're still over my shoulder, snapping at a fly. So anyway, let's talk about pedigrees for a second. We've talked about pedigrees in the past, but pedigrees are a way to list awards that either your rabbit has won or that, hi tequila, or that the parents have won or the grandparents have won. So it's a good way to keep track of that. It's a good way to track down breeders who might have, stop licking that, but track down breeders who might have bred previous generations of, your rabbit's grandparents or their great-grandparents. Good way to keep track of breeders. It's a fun way to keep track of a family tree, and really they're just fun to have. So I love having pedigrees. They're not strictly necessary most of the time, but they are nice to have. The benefits of a pedigree are you can see where that rabbit came from. You can usually see if the breeder has taken the time to write down all the information. You can see if there have been any awards in your rabbit's past, so if they were best in show at something or whatever, best of breed, whatever. So you can take the time to find out that kind of information by having the pedigree. So if you don't have a pedigree, it's not necessarily a deal breaker. And so Aquarius here is pedigreed. He's pedigreed because I have filled out his pedigree. That is a fly, yes. Really annoying fly. You're going to eat him. He's a good dog. But he is pedigreed. His mom is fully pedigreed. They didn't start out that way. So when I first got into breeding rabbits, none of mine were pedigreed. So a pedigree is simply a record of the parents and grandparents and great-grandparents of that rabbit. That means you can start with unpedigreed rabbits and within 3 generations have a pedigreed rabbit. It's just about keeping track. So the pedigrees are not stamped. They're not signed by anyone except the breeder. They're not some kind of gatekeeping fancy thing that is kept in some huge database, because most of the rabbits aren't even registered. You only register if you're going to compete. There's no point in registering otherwise. So it's not like in the dog world where you have, even if you're not going to show that dog, if it's a purebred registered dog, you get the registration. It's not like that with rabbits. There isn't a central registry that is keeping track of what rabbit was bred to who and what the litter was. And there's not, it's only the individual. That's another rabbit behind me. If you're wondering what that, that's another rabbit. What are you doing? Okay, whatever. But pedigrees are not like in the dog world. They really are just the breeder keeping track. So you can start with unpedigreed rabbits, and because rabbits are ready to breed fairly young, less than a year old, regardless of breed, less than a year old, you can have a litter. It only takes a couple of years before you have pedigreed rabbits, as long as you kept track yourself of your breeding. So if you're breeding purebred rabbits that don't have pedigrees, a couple generations later, you've got a full pedigree. So pedigrees are fun, and they have some importance if you are looking for pedigreed rabbits, or you want to make sure that you're not breeding rabbits with close siblings or close relatives in their pedigrees. That's important to me anyway. I don't like breeding ones that are too closely related. That's why I do a lot of trading rabbits with other people. But it's fun for that, but they're often not strictly necessary. They're fun. And if you're breeding rabbits, you should absolutely keep track of pedigrees and provide those pedigrees to people who buy the rabbit and blah, 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 blah. But they're not strictly necessary for showing. What's more important is that your rabbit meet the breed standard. So this is why you only have, a rabbit breeder will have 2 or 3 breeds maybe, but they won't show very many breeds. So maybe they'll show 2 or 3. Even if they breed more than that, they'll probably only show 2 or 3. And it's because each breed has its own standard. So, and I'm not just talking about ears. So obviously we have Rexes and Lops, and the Rexes have up ears and the Lops have down ears. That's one of the differences. There are a lot of other differences. So each breed has its own breed standard. So when you are getting into a breed, you are going to want to read that breed standard. You can get that from your association that you'll be competing in. And a lot of it's going to sound like gobbledygook. I'm going to be honest about that. A lot of it sounds like gobbledygook. And you're just going to be like, I have no idea what any of that means. That's fine. There's a lot of nuance to the rabbit standards that don't really make sense if you're new. And even if you've been in it a while, sometimes you'll be like, I still don't know what that means. And I'm just going to move on with my life. It's okay. The judges know what it means. So the things that you do want to pay attention to are things like color. Are you showing a color that is acceptable in the breed you're showing in? So he's a Holland Lop, blue-eyed whites. So white rabbits are allowed to be shown with either blue eyes or ruby eyes. And he is a blue-eyed white. So he can be shown. His mom, Gemini, is a Vienna marked black otter with blue eyes. She can't be shown. That Vienna mark and the blue eyes in a black otter disqualify her from showing. So she can't even go to a show. He can. He's lovely and can definitely go to a show. So you want to just check your breed standards. And it's more than just up ears or down. It's a lot about body shape. So Holland Lops, for example, are a lot rounder. So when he is posed, which he can't be posed right now just because he's not on a flat surface, he's on my lap. But when properly posed, he is very round. So he's kind of a round, rotund little guy. And he is. Okay, he's not quite old enough to be shown yet, but he's very rotund. He's got a lot of roundness to him. He's like this puffball. No matter what angle you look at him from, he's very puffball-y when he's properly posed. That is the standard for a Holland Lop. The Rexes are much more elongated. So I show 2 very different types of rabbits. And the Rexes are much more elongated, have obviously up ears instead of down ears. But they have just a different standard. So he's got a shorter nose than the Rexes do. The Rexes have a longer muzzle. He's obviously got a more pushed in nose here and less elongation in the face because that's just his breed. And now you're going to chew on my shirt. Fantastic. I love you too. So you have to check your breed standard. And I'm not going to talk too much about the individual breed standards only because I only have a lot of experience in the 2. Okay, I've only ever shown the two. Do not bite through my pants. I like these pants. But I've only ever shown the two. So because I've only ever shown the two, yes, I could go into detail about what makes a good Holland lot or what makes a good Rex, but beyond that, I can't really. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the breed standards, but you do want to make sure, for example, you're showing a color that is acceptable in the breed you're showing. You do want to make sure, ouch, that was right through my skin. But you do want to make sure that the eye color matches. So in his case, he's white, so he either needs ruby eyes or blue eyes. And you do want to make sure that the toenails are the right color. Oddly enough, toenails matter. So his toenails all need to be white, and they are. So good for him, his toenails are white. So because his toenails are white and his eyes are blue and his fur is entirely white, he has no blemishes, he is a pure white, he's not yellowy or anything like that. He's not ivory, he's very much white. Okay, so because of that, he meets his color, his eye color, and his toenail standards. The colors that are allowed change by breed. So not every beautiful color that you see are allowed to be shown. So, for example, Holland lops, torts. I love black torts, which kind of have that brownie body with the black points where the nose is black and the ears are black, things like that. I love that color. They are showable in my Holland lops. They are not currently showable in my Rexes. So even though I love the torts, having a bunch of tort Rexes isn't really helpful if I'm showing. A lot of my Rexes are not sold for show, so it doesn't really matter if I have a couple of torts, but it matters if you're going to show. So you do need to be aware of what colors are allowed. Be prepared to spend a lot of time Googling. So even just making sure your rabbit meets the color that is required is a bit of a pain in the butt. You're going to sit there and you're going to be like, okay, is this a lynx? Can it be shown as a lynx? Remember, rabbits are shown according to their phenotype, not their genotype. What that means is genotype is what they are genetically. Phenotype is what they look like. So just because your rabbit looks like something doesn't mean it'll be shown as that. So I have seen, and I have done it, I have shown a rabbit that is genetically an opal as a lynx. Just because that's the way his colors came out. And he was very beautiful as a lynx, but genetically he wasn't a lynx, he was an opal. So it doesn't really matter what he is genetically, it's what does he look like. So that's another reason why pedigrees are not that important. So yes, thank you, Tequila. But yes, pedigreed rabbits are a lot of fun. They are really helpful if you're just getting started, if you want to invest in pedigreed rabbits. It's really helpful because then you know you're getting rabbits where at least the breeder has been keeping track, and breeders who keep track do tend to be a higher quality breeder than someone who's breeding indiscriminately. So it is nice if you can find a breeder who's keeping track anyway. But it is not necessary, and you can do it yourself. You can pedigree your own rabbits within a couple generations. So if you can't find pedigreed rabbits, it's actually okay. Registration is something done at the show. So he is not registered yet. Okay, he has a tattoo already because I've tattooed him recently. But he has a tattoo in one ear that is my breeder tattoo. So AA followed by his number. However, he does not have a registration tattoo yet. He is going to his first shows next year. He's still a little bit too young. And he will get those tattoos, that tattoo, the registration tattoo in his other ear, when we go to the show. If it's an ARBA sanctioned show, they have someone there who for a small fee can tattoo your rabbit with the registration number. So he doesn't have a registration number yet. He will once we go, but it is not uncommon, just talking about pedigrees again, when you get a pedigree if the registration number isn't filled out. If all that's filled out is the ear number, that's not uncommon, because the registration number you typically only bother with if you're taking your rabbit to the show. You'll get the registration number there, and then from then on you have a registration number when you compete. If you're not taking your rabbit to the show, there's almost no point. So when you're looking at a pedigree, looking to buy your rabbits, and you're looking at the pedigree before you buy the rabbit, which you should do. If the rabbit has a pedigree, look at it before you buy. You're looking at that pedigree. If all you see are ear numbers, that's really normal, because the ear numbers are the number the rabbit would have from the breeder. So I don't always tattoo before they leave. I don't tattoo till they're 6 months old. And most of my rabbits leave before that. So I just provide the number to people who are buying the rabbits. But it is not uncommon to not have that registration number. You only get that registration number when you're going to the show to compete. So absolutely check the pedigrees before you buy. Make sure you're buying healthy rabbits that do not have illnesses. Talk to the breeder. For example, this is a Holland lot. So one of the things I would ask is, are you breeding rabbits that have had ear infections? Because lops are prone to them. I don't breed a rabbit that has ever had an ear infection. So that's a question I would ask. Do your rabbits have any breathing problems? That is common with lops. Their nose gets a little bit too short, and some breeders breed for that short nose. I don't. I like a little more elongation just so they have an easier time breathing. I don't want anyone ever making a weird sound when they breathe. Thank you, Gemini. That's Gemini in the background. But talk to the breeder before you buy. Getting your rabbits is not difficult if you know what to look for. Find a decent breeder, be willing to wait, and check that pedigree. Check that pedigree, make sure it's what you're looking for. Because not everybody wants a pedigree where, for example, there was line breeding. Maybe the son was bred back to his mom. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but maybe it's not what you're looking for. So check the pedigrees before you buy. Make sure that if you're buying an unpedigreed rabbit that you ask all the right questions. Is this rabbit healthy? What kind of problems have the parents had? Can I see the parents? If you can't see the parents, that's a red flag. I will always bring my parents out if the people ask, or at least share photo and video. Anyway, that is just some of the basics for how you would go about picking your rabbit before you show. We are going to come back and talk about some of the next steps, the next things you do. So finding a show, that kind of thing, in subsequent weeks. But right now, I just want to talk a little bit about getting your show rabbit and checking the pedigree, and maybe getting unpedigreed rabbits and starting a pedigree yourself. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.